What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And joining me once again, as he will be and has been every other week, is the one and only Peter Bukowski. You can find him on The Leap. You can find him on Locked On Packers. You can find him at all different variety of Packers and non-Packers talking stuff. He's everywhere. Peter, thank you for joining me today. I always appreciate it.
It's good to be here, Andy.
You're always like, you're somewhere doing something that it's like, I like, you're always somewhere. It's insane.
It is true. I am always somewhere. You might not know where I am from 1 minute to the next, but I am in fact always somewhere.
Very tall, always doing something. And yeah, it's incredible. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. Let's talk about The Leap first, because you got a couple articles up right now, one by you, one by Jason. Obviously, there's a lot more than that, but those are the two recent ones. Both of you kind of delving into the injury issues. You kind of how the Packers have kind of changed their philosophy a little bit due to injuries. Yep. Jason kind of going more over like it's starting to reach the tipping point of, they can't really suffer any more injuries at this point. But tell us a little bit about what's going on at The Leap.
So there is always a lot going on at The Leap, and the Monday newsletter is always free. I think that's the thing that I love to stress to people because, not everyone has the same attention span for Packer content. I assume people that are listening to this that are here every day, have that attention span, but not everyone does. You just want to let me just get that Monday breakdown of what happened on Sunday. So we do that. For those of you that want a little bit more in-depth work, one of the coolest pieces that I've ever worked on, I had Eric Stokes' DB coach go out and we watched the tape together of Eric Stokes, all his targets against San Francisco in that first start, and broke down the tape like he would, like if I were Eric Stokes. And it was just so cool to get his feedback and break it down like an NFL player would have it broken down. So that kind of stuff. Mike Wall a couple of weeks ago did a first person piece about his experiences walking away from the game and what that was like. And so that kind of stuff you can expect at The Leap on a regular basis. So theleap.substack.com. And I appreciate you letting me plug it.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, and that's kind of the cool thing of what you're doing, right? Like you're diving into stuff that, as much Packer stuff is that there is out there, you're finding unique and different stuff. Like, again, Mike Wall, like talking to Eric Stokes's, coach to actually grade the game. Like that stuff's awesome, man. And I appreciate you're doing it. And again, like you said, for those of you Packer fans that are watching a daily episode of me, they probably have that same level of desire and oxygen to want to dig into some of that nerdy stuff. It's awesome, man.
We always are trying to bring new and different stuff. And we know there's a lot out there. Obviously, I mean, the work that is being done, the Packer fans are lucky that there are a lot of great content creators out there that are bringing them tons of insight. And so we're trying to find, a niche that is a little bit outside of that goes a little bit deeper. It's more than just the box scores. It's more than just, my slogan at Locked On Packers is it's for the fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. And I'm sure a lot of fans of yours can understand that feeling because you do a similar thing where you're going beyond just like, hey, this thing happened. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about what it means. And so that's sort of the banner that we serve under.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I love the fact that there is all that amazing content. I also hate it as a content creator because it makes me have to do way more work to try to stand out anymore. It's the absolute worst. You guys are jerks for raising the bar. So thanks a lot for that. But we've got a ton of legitimate stuff to get into today. Not that any of the stuff we just went over wasn't legitimate, but a lot of movement, a lot of noise, a lot of substance, a lot of all of it. Let's kick things off with really how the day got kicked off. And that was with the rumor that Stephon Gilmore was going to be released. And then the rumor that he wanted to go to Green Bay and that Green Bay was the likely landing spot to just, of course, in such amazing Packer chef kiss sort of way to have him traded to the Carolina Panthers. It's just a beautiful work of art all the way from beginning to end to raise hopes just as much as possible, just to kick you right in the teeth and bring you right back down.
Yeah, it was pretty typical. And you know what? I have to say, I have at times over the last year, especially given what everyone has been through over the last 18 months, tried to rein in my like sarcasm, cynicism quotient a little bit. And I'm sure there are people right now going, that's bullshit. And maybe they're right. But like, I try and stay away from the like, well, Packer fans are going to be mad when he signs with Tampa, in 24 hours, just because like I don't know, like who are you serving with those things? I saw a lot of it from a lot of people.
Yep.
And I just like, yes, probably more like odds say it will not be Green Bay. It's not going to be New England. So there's 30 other teams that it could be, just like math says it's probably not going to be Green Bay. So like, that's not interesting to me, but you're right to say that the fact that there was so much energy devoted to Green Bay's the favorite, people plugged in, not just like BS people who say stuff to say stuff.
Right.
I mean, there are those people out there, but plugged in Patriots media people, Boston media people going, no, the Packers are the favorite to do this. We see over and over and over those reports, not that they turn out to be wrong, but they turn out to be either subterfuge or like it just happens a lot.
Yep.
And Green Bay, I made this joke, like we need someone on Packers Reddit to go back and check all of the times that the Packers have been like the favorite or like among the teams involved in these discussions and they go somewhere else. Because how many times have we heard such and such a place or such and such a player is linked to Green Bay and then they go there? It always seems to be that the opposite is true. That all of a sudden Jimmy Graham is a Packer and we had no idea that was going to happen. All of a sudden Julius Peppers is a Packer and we had no idea. Brian Gutekunst's free agency, when he signs the Smith brothers, Adrian Amos and Billy Turner, we had no idea that was going to happen right up until it happened.
Right.
So that's what I'm always just like, okay, let's be nervous about this right up until it happens. I think Rob Demovsky's report is very interesting because he pointed out it benefited the Patriots to put out there that the Packers are interested.
Yep.
And I don't think that means that the Packers weren't interested or that Stephon Gilmore was not interested in going to Green Bay. I think in fact, both of those things can and probably are true, but the Packers felt like the salary cap constraints were too much for them to trade for Gilmore. What they would need to do is have him be released and then they could sign Gilmore. The fact that no other club reportedly even offered for Gilmore, though, tells me he wanted to go to a specific place, and all of the reporting, all of the leaks were really leveraged by the agent and the Patriots to make sure he got to where he wanted to get to. And that was Carolina. They wanted to extract whatever they could from the Panthers because that's ultimately where Stephon Gilmore wanted to go. Because Andy, if the asking price is a 6th round pick, a dozen teams are paying that price to get Stephon Gilmore, healthy or not. The Bucks are doing it. The Seahawks are doing it. The 49ers are doing it. The Chiefs, my God, the Chiefs.
Yep.
Their defense is an atrocity. They're making this trade. So I just don't want to hear the Packers cheaped out again. That's not, I do not believe that's what happened.
I tend to agree with you for a couple of different reasons. Obviously I think they would have loved to have had Stephon Gilmore. Like you said, like I'm sure a variety of teams would have. I think you bring up a great point too, is that it's not just as simple as players on the block. Panthers are offering a 6th, we'll offer a late 5th or a 6th and a future 7th or something. Like it's not always that easy because the agent sometimes has a say, the player has a say. You don't want to bring somebody in that's not invested in your team and your culture. That's not a great way to do business. So I agree with everything. I think Green Bay had a lot of interest in Stephon Gilmore. I think they wanted to make this happen. I think New England and Stephon Gilmore's agent had every reason to maybe get this out there that Green Bay was the favorite landing place. They get something from Carolina rather than nothing. It is interesting to me. And maybe one of the most interesting aspects of this deal is you hardly ever see, especially from a New England Patriots standpoint, you hardly ever see a team where there's interest in a player and they trade him for less than they would likely get if he left in free agency for a compensatory pick. They got a future 2023 6th round pick. When he leaves in free agency next year to whatever team he goes to, unless he signs a long-term deal with Carolina, he's going to get enough money that it would be a 5th round pick in compensation. So whatever team's acquiring him, in this case, the Panthers, not only are they getting Stephon Gilmore, they're actually, if he leaves in free agency, they're turning a 2023 6th into a 2023 5th, which is absolutely crazy to think of. It just doesn't usually happen that way, which again, to your point, lends you to believe it was Carolina, and that's where he wanted to go. That's where home is, all those sort of things. And I think that's ultimately where we got to.
And I know this isn't a Patriots podcast, but I do think it says something about where Bill Belichick sees this team, that he said, okay, star player, someone we paid a top of market free agent contract to, who helped us win a Super Bowl, who was the defensive player of the year in 2019.
Yep.
I know pre-pandemic was a long time ago, Andy, but that is not in real time that long ago that he was the best defensive player in the league.
Yep.
The fact that they gave him away, to your point, I think tells us a little something about where Bill Belichick sees this team. They spend a lot of money in free agency, and I think they realize, okay, Mac Jones is just not where we thought he would be. And so maybe this season is a little bit of a sell-off. I think if they thought they were going to compete, if they were really in the mix in the AFC, and who knows, maybe if that kick doesn't doink, they don't make this deal. Who knows? I mean, right? That's possible. That maybe they're going, this probably just is not the year for us. And so let's get something here, and let's send a player who has helped this organization get to where he wants to get to. I think, Stephon Gilmore lives or has a home outside of Charlotte. Clearly he wanted to be in the Carolinas, and Greg Bedard, who was all over the reporting of all of this and including the Packers' interest, said that Stephon Gilmore's agent was in control of this from the jump. And if that's true, then that means he went to where he wanted to go. And this is unfortunately, and I think Packer fans, a lot of them have to just reckon with the fact that Green Bay, yes, it is a place that players can go to play with Aaron Rodgers, but not a vacation destination. And so it's going to be hard. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders said he didn't want to go to Green Bay because it was cold. And then a year later went to Buffalo, Andy, over Green Bay. Now, maybe that was because of role. Maybe that was, for a lot of different reasons potentially, but it just, right. It is hard. It is hard, I think, if you're a Packers fan, to accept, as much as you love your team, that your front office can only deal with players who want to come there. That's just the reality.
And I think the other piece of this too is it's been noted that Stephon Gilmore wants a long-term deal, and he wants to find somewhere we can call home.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in Green Bay.
Not going to happen in Green Bay. And players are now well aware of Green Bay's situation, right? Like they don't know the future of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and a lot of players on this team. This isn't something that you can look to and say, all right, Green Bay's got everything perfectly planned out for the next 5 years. That's where I want to go because I'm going to have chance after chance after chance for the Super Bowl. This is this year, and everything after this year is completely in flux and could go probably in a million different directions. So I think that's probably a piece of this too. Now, that being said, Green Bay wasn't completely quiet. They do quickly move on from Stephon Gilmore, add two players. Interestingly enough, I'm interested in your thoughts on both of these players. Let's start with Rasul Douglas, former third-round cornerback, actually played a decent amount last year. Not great statistically, has had some ups and downs in his career. He was on Arizona's practice squad. They bring him over. It's a 3-week requirement for him to be on the roster, at least that roster spot to go to Rasul Douglas. It's an investment. It's not exactly the investment that I know a lot of people were hoping at the cornerback position, but your thoughts on Rasul coming to Green Bay?
So he's not a world beater. Like, let's just be honest about it.
Yep.
But that being said, I have kind of secretly always been a Rasul Douglas fan, like going back to when he was drafted. I liked him coming out. This is a guy who was a top 100 pick. I mean, he was the 99th pick. So I'm, stretching it a little bit, but like he was a top 100 pick. And so there is pedigree, size. I mean, he's 6'2", long, lanky corner. And the Packers played him last year. Like they scouted this guy as recently as 12 months ago.
Right.
So it's not like they're totally unfamiliar with him as a player. Is he a starting caliber corner? In a perfect world, no, but that's true of Kevin King, and they re-signed Kevin King. So I said this on Twitter, and I caught a little bit of crap for it. But if you had told me, like, let's just rewind to March, the Packers don't re-sign Kevin King,
right?
And they sign Rasul Douglas for whatever Kevin King's 2021 cap hit is, which is like $2 million or something.
Yep.
I would have felt great about it. I'd have been like, cool. This is one of those things. He started, 11 games last year, whatever it was. And he comes in and he gives you the security, because to me, the Kevin King deal was, we don't know what is out there for us. Is there a corner in the draft that we can find that we like? Maybe not. You're a slave to your board.
Yep.
And so if you can't find anybody, you need to have someone that you think can start right away. If you have to take, why can't I think of his name? There was a small school kid that I really liked in this draft, whose name unfortunately is escaping me because I have a toddler and my brain no longer functions all the time. Robert Rochelle is the guy that I was thinking of. Gotcha. A middle round guy that I loved. If you're going to take him in the 3rd or the 4th round, he's not ready to play right away.
Right.
But physical attributes, upside, that's sort of like Sam Shields' pedigree profile, the Kabion Ento profile potentially. I know that's your guy. You maybe in a year or two you can have him on the field, but you need someone who's going to play in the meantime. That's Rasul Douglas. He is a bridge corner. We talk about bridge quarterbacks, right? Yep. He's a bridge corner. Unfortunately, Eric Stokes is already on the field because Jair Alexander is hurt and Kevin King's been hurt. So if you get Kevin King back, all right, you have Kevin King. That's nice, I suppose. Eric Stokes is playing, I think, terrific football, honestly. And Shannon Sullivan has been fine. I don't know what your grades have him, but I like fine, passable. He's not killing them. If Juju catches the double move out of the slot, maybe you feel differently about it, right? But he didn't, so you don't. And so I like this move independent of the status of Jair Alexander, and I know we're going to talk about that. But again, if you had just told me like Rasul Douglas is going to be their 3rd corner or their 4th corner, or their 3rd boundary corner, I'm probably pretty good with that.
I don't disagree at all. And I think if you look at what they have on the roster outside of Eric Stokes right now, whether it's Kevin King, whether it's Rasul Douglas, whether it's Isaac Yiadom, there are players who have played a good amount of snaps in the NFL. Have they always been high quality snaps? They have not, but they've got starts under their belt. They've got, playing time under their belt. And I think you hit it right on the head, where you're just looking for somebody who's going to be able to fill in, have some spot starts, not completely blow a coverage is the hope. And you can kind of get by with them until hopefully Jair Alexander gets back, until hopefully, Eric Stokes is ready to play at a super high level. And hopefully those things happen sooner rather than later. But if not, at least you've got veteran guys who know how to play the position. And that's all you can hope for at this point. You don't have money. You don't have, a ton of trade capital. You're all in kind of already. That's kind of the best you can hope for in that situation.
How quickly after this all happened, and after we got the news about, it's a money problem, and Rob Domofsky's reporting on the contract part of it, how quickly did your mind go to, that's Kevin King's money that's holding this up? That's the difference. Yeah.
And here's the thing, right? And I know Owen Reese, friend of the podcast, pointed out, well, you don't know that, Stephon Gilmore is going to come available and things right. like that. And I get that. And
you don't know that Eric Stokes is going to be able to play right away. Even if you take Eric Stokes, yes. I didn't think he'd be as good as he's been this early. I didn't.
No, I agree with that. I think the thing that, and to your point, if you would have said you can have Rasul Douglas for $2 million or Kevin King for $5 million, I would have said, give me Rasul. If you would have said, give me, and maybe Casey Hayward doesn't sign, as you pointed out, but Casey Hayward at 2.5, Josh Norman at, I think 1 point something or 2, like whatever he got. There's just a bunch of other corners at lower deals that I would have preferred over Kevin King at that point in time. And I think regardless of what happens in the future, a bad deal is a bad deal. And to me at that time, at now, in the benefit of hindsight, in the benefit of the moment, all of it, to me, that Kevin King deal didn't look like a good deal. And I had even talked myself into, as much as I didn't want to see Kevin King back, and for both parties, I thought Green Bay needed to go in a different direction. I thought Kevin King just needed a fresh start and to go somewhere different, maybe get different coaching, whatever. I just felt like both needed something new. Even I talked myself into, okay, you get him back for 2.5 million. I think that's actually a really nice deal for Kevin King. When it starts getting up to 5 million, it just seems like you're outbidding yourselves. And there were other corners that were more talented that got less than he got. And that was my biggest sticking point with it. And then when you overpay a player, it just has that trickle down effect of when you want to make a move like this, you've got money tied into players that aren't performing with you or for you. And again, Kevin King's an example of that. Dean Lowry, to an extent, is an example of that. And no matter what, no matter if there's a Stephon Gilmore there or not, you want to avoid as many of those as possible. They had the opportunity to avoid both of them. They didn't. And yes, that it can have a cost at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm trying to remember. I don't like to claim I felt the way that I didn't feel, but it's hard to remember now exactly how I felt in that moment. I think my perspective on it was like, okay, this year it doesn't cost a bunch.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's the plus side of it, right? This year, you see 1 year, 6 million or whatever the numbers were. And you go, that's a lot, but it's not real. I mean, right. It was really a 4-year deal. And so it's spread out, but still that money counts. And I think worse than that, forget the money.
Yep.
He came into camp preventing Eric Stokes from being your day one starter. And the reason that is a mistake in retrospect is, look, it's true that they did not know Stokes would be ready week 1. By week 2, he was the starting boundary corner in nickel. They moved Kevin King into the slot, which, if we're being honest here, was an excuse to keep Kevin King on the field.
Agreed.
And by week 3, Kevin King is hurt and Eric Stokes is starting and looks like a bona fide starting NFL corner. And so you're going, okay, well then this was really a huge mistake, because not only have you sunk money in now, and you have sunk money in the future into a player who is not going to be a part of your team beyond this year, you have prevented the player that you used a first-round pick to get every rep in training camp and start the season as the starter. And look, were they going to beat the Saints in week 1? No. But Kevin King gave up 2 huge plays in that game. And it's just like, that doesn't help your defense. It doesn't help Eric Stokes' growth. Now, luckily, he's a fast learner by all accounts. He is a gamer by all accounts, Eric Stokes is. And he has really, made progress even since the spring. From the people I've talked to, like there is a serious difference between where he was and where he is now. And even where he is now relative to where he was in week 2, those things have started to change. And there is still another level that I think he could get to. There were a couple plays in the San Francisco game and against the Steelers. He has a pick through 2.5 starts. He could have like 3 or 4. He
just needs to trust that instinct just a little bit more. Like
just to trigger.
That's it.
The one against Pittsburgh. That's 6 going the other way.
Yep.
And I tweeted about it. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who pointed it out, but this was something that I talked to Oliver Davis about, his personal DBs coach. He's like, the thing that Eric needs to do is just sort of trust himself and have that confidence. And what I said was, or what Oliver said, and then we talked more about, was he just needs 1 play or 2 plays. Just make a play or 2. And I wonder if the play to seal the Steelers game opens the floodgates for him, that all of a sudden he's going, hey, wait, I can do this. Like, this is easy. I played in the SEC. Like, I played quarterbacks better than Ben Roethlisberger. Like, this guy sucks. And by the way, he'd be right if he did think that. And so I wonder if by the end of the year, we're looking at this going, whoa, like this guy is really, really talented. And if he starts to put that stuff together, the ball skills, that's the big question with him. If he puts that stuff together, he has the chance. Those physical tools are rare.
Yep.
I know this is a Rasul Douglas segment, but we got off the rails.
The sooner we can get off of Rasul Douglas and get to Eric Stokes, probably the better anyway.
Sure.
I don't want to keep you too long, and we still have Jalen Smith to get to. So let's transition over there. I, of course, look amazing because I tweet the day before, do not go after Jalen Smith. Didn't think it was the best use of resources. Now, my thinking on this is a couple things. One, obviously, his knee's not the same, since he had the major knee injury. He doesn't have the same change of direction. His instincts never have been quite there in the NFL, a little bit shaky. You have Devondre Campbell already, who's your starter. I've liked what Chris Barnes has put on tape. I still think he's your number two. I've actually been I'm not an Oren. I don't want to get labeled an Oren Burks guy. That is not what I would like next to my name. However, I have been more impressed with Oren Burks this year than I have been in previous seasons. I feel comfortable with him as a number
Oren
three
Burks guy.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You're an Oren Burks guy. I have been an Oren Burks guy. So you're not in bad company if you're an Oren Burks guy.
Deal.
Anyway.
Now, everyone blowing up at me is like, how could you not want this guy over Ty Summers? Did you see what Ty Summers just put on tape? I did. I'm not a fan of what Ty Summers just put on tape. And if my question is, do you want to start Jaylon Smith or Ty Summers at linebacker? My question is easily and obviously Jalen Smith. My whole thought process here is you've got three guys that I feel pretty comfortable with as your starters. Your number 4 and 5 linebackers are there to play special teams. And that's going to be your Ty Summers. That's going to be your Isaiah McDuffie. They're there for special teams. Is Jalen Smith going to play special teams? Is he going to start? Do I have a major issue if Smith plays ahead of Oren Burks? I don't have a major issue with it. I just don't think you're going to get the return on investment that I think a lot of people are thinking they're going to get with him, And that was sort of my entire impetus. Now, the one thing I will say is by all accounts, Jalen is an amazing leader, locker room guy, all of that, which this defense can absolutely use more of. He's an intense dude. He wants to win. All of that is great. And I will insanely appreciate him being able to bring that. He's breaking down the team in Dallas the week that he gets cut. Like he definitely has that mentality. So I'm definitely willing to take a wait and see approach on it. I hope I'm wrong, but I'd be curious as to what your thoughts were with this. What looks like is going to happen for Green Bay.
Yeah. So I hate to have a take that is, I don't know.
That's fair. It's fair though at this situation.
But that's my take. And I was someone who was such a big fan of his at Notre Dame. He was such a fun prospect to watch. And the injury issues, I mean, coming out to have, that many leg issues, nerve damage, drop foot. I mean, these are phrases that you do not want associated with you. I mean, it's like microfracture surgery. That's one of those words that you don't want to hear. No. Nerve issues. You don't want to hear that. Back issues. You never want to hear that. So his success in Dallas, I was actually stoked about. I was so pumped for him to have that success because there was a point in Dallas when he looked like the next star linebacker in the league. And he just, for whatever reason, and I can't pinpoint it. I can't say that I followed it as closely as like people in Dallas. And I've reached out to some people in Dallas to talk to them about it a little bit. And I think part of it is a confidence issue. I think he lost his confidence a little bit. I think the athleticism, this is always the concern with these hyper athletic guys. And I think this is the concern. This was the concern with Miles Jack, for example. If you have degenerative issues with your body, it might be 3-4 good years. And then year 5, year 6, it starts to become a real problem. And Miles Jack is a shell of his former self athletically. And I think by next year, we're going to have conversations about Miles Jack that we're having with Jalen Smith now.
Agreed.
Now, does that mean that he's useless? No, of course not. To your point, I mean, I think, is he a better option than Ty Summers? Absolutely. Ty Summers, I cannot understand after what we saw from Ty 2 weeks ago, why he was the starting base linebacker next to Devondre Campbell against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hopefully that puts this to bed here now. But this is something that I have appreciated about Brian Gutekunst from the start. He is willing to say, there is an opportunity to make this team marginally better. I am going to take that opportunity. And that was something that Ted Thompson, I think, for all of the things that you can say that are really positive about Ted, he was not willing to take those marginal improvements. He was not willing to turn over the end of the roster. And for every Chris Barnes that you find, you're going to have a Natrell Jamerson that you're really excited about and who turns out can't play. I was really excited about Jamerson coming to Green Bay, and it turned out he's just not an NFL player.
Right.
But then you have the Rick Wagners of the world who are low cost, low risk players who you bring in and you go, that's swing tackle all day. Maybe the starting right tackle.
Devondre Campbell.
He's starting. Like he's running with the ones. He's the guy on day 2. And it's just like, no, he's a veteran NFL player. And that kind of value, I think, is profound. Chris Barnes is a nice undrafted free agent. But could Jaylon Smith outperform him by 2 weeks from now? Absolutely, he could. I mean, I don't think that's crazy at all. And at the level Devondre Campbell's playing, I almost don't care who's playing next to him. He's playing awesome football right now. So I think this is a worthy swing in the same way that Devin Funchess was a worthy swing, in the same way Christian Kirksey was a worthy swing, in the same way Rick Wagner was a worthy swing. If we come out to March, and to bring this back to our earlier topic, and the Packers had signed Jaylon Smith and Rasul Douglas and forget the rest, I think Packer fans would have probably felt pretty good about where the defense was heading into the draft.
Yeah.
And, right now, the lens is going to be Stephon Gilmore and Jair Alexander, and that's inescapable. Now, for the Packers, the only thing that really matters is 23. What is his status? Where is he moving forward? What are the options? And unfortunately, we were supposed to get an update on Wednesday. We didn't get that update. And so it's really hard to put all this into context, because if Jair Alexander's not on the field, I mean, unless Kevin King gets in the juvenation machine, you can't be rejuvenated if you were never juvenated to start. Unless he can do that, this defense is in a lot of trouble. But if Jair can come back in a month, even 6 weeks, 8 weeks, remember it's a 17 game, 18 week schedule now. I mean, there's 14 more of these weeks. That's a long time for someone to rehab something. So I am staying optimistic about Jair Alexander. Even if he has to sit for 6 weeks just to rest it and rehab and heal it, and then has to wear a sling the rest of the year, 1.5 arm Jair Alexander is the best cornerback the Packers have, probably, and is still probably one of the 10 best corners in the league, if we're being honest.
Totally agree. I mean, his footwork is beyond insane, and that will get him so many places just with that alone. Yeah, I think that is the obvious elephant in the room still, is just what his status is. Because like you said, if he's out 8 weeks and they go 4-4 in 8 weeks without Jair and Z, they can get by with that. They can go 7-5, and hopefully go on a kind of run to end the season. 7-5 is going to be in the driver's seat in the NFC North. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. Yeah. So to me, this, as I mentioned all along, this is about being as healthy and as good as possible when January hits, because that's when you need to be playing your best football. I think they're going to win the division almost no matter what. I'll just leave it at that. But we got to get you out of here.
If he has to sit 10 weeks, sit him 10 weeks.
Yeah.
You can win this division at 10-7.
I agree. And I see the other thing is, I don't think they can get the 1 seed no matter what. I don't think no matter what they do, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm wrong, but I think with the schedule they have, I think the 1 seed is going to be insanely tough.
Schedule's tough.
Yeah. So I think, at that point, whether you're the 2 or the 4,
who's going to win it though? I don't want to get too far off track, but the NFC West is a disaster because all those teams are so good. And Tampa, who's playing corner for Tampa? They're so banged up right now. They haven't looked good really all season. I mean, have they had a kick-ass game?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it is wide open, but we're both saying the same thing. If Jair needs to sit for 2.5 months, sit him. Just sit him. Let him rest.
Yep. And see how much Stokes in these corners can hopefully carry you until then.
They still have Aaron Rodgers. They still have Devontae Adams. They still have Aaron Jones. And in a week or two, Elton Jenkins is going to be back. And in 3 weeks, David Bakhtiari is going to be back. And they've won playoff games with less.
Yes, they have. Go with the mentality that you got to put up 45 points and just go do it, because they have the ability to, especially when those offensive linemen get back. Peter, amazing stuff as always. We didn't get to the Peter Bukowski hot take of the week. We'll pick that back up in 2 weeks. We had a lot.
Wait, can I just give it really quick?
Yeah, no, I'm doing this for you. We can talk for another hour if you want.
Well, so my hot take of the week, by the way, we nailed the last one. Can we just say that? Yeah,
you nailed the last
Randall
one.
Cobb
I didn't do anything.
Well, you agreed.
It's true.
But Randall Cobb is evolving 46% of the snaps and led the team in targets. That's pretty amazing. AJ Dillon. I don't know that he's going to take over the carry lead in every game, but this is going to be a lot closer to a 50-50 split the rest of the season than we thought it was going to be. And it was 50-50 on Sunday, and Dillon was the more productive back. Now, I know the 25-yarder helped create that, but Aaron Jones is so valuable in the passing game. I think we're going to see more of the 21 personnel. Yep. And I think they're going to use Dillon more, lean on Dillon more in these regular season games, especially in the second half with leads. I think this is by the end of the year, it's going to be much closer in just the carries. I don't know about touches, but just the carries. I think the AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones split is going to be much closer than we thought it was going to be coming into the season. That's like a lukewarm take, but
I like it though. I think the distribution this past week is their ideal vision of the distribution during the regular season. I think
sure.
that sort of split. I think the only thing that's going to, potentially get them away from that is if we've seen like the games where they're down or they have to it's just point for point and they're not really just running their offense and running the football. I think in those situations, we're just going to inherently see more Aaron Jones. But I think in a perfect world, in a perfect situation, games are evenly matched and they're not playing from behind. I think 1,000,000% we're going to see 16 carries around there for each of them. And I think the other thing is I think Dillon showed in multiple occasions now that he takes a little bit to get going, and both on the play where you want to see him gain some momentum and start getting, running downhill, but also just as the game goes on, it might be a little easier. I'm sure it's still not easy, but in the first half to man up and tackle AJ Dillon in those situations. Once you've done it, 14 times, the 15th and the 16th is just a pain in the ass. And that's not as fun anymore. And you can just tell he starts getting in a rhythm. We saw it in the Tennessee game. We saw it a little bit more in this last game. I think that 15, 16 carry mark is a really good landmark for him.
And I think for both he and Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to say, okay, Aaron Jones, 20 touches, great. If it's 12 carries and 8 targets, let's go. Like I'm all about that. And what I think is really interesting, and the play that they got the swing route to AJ Dillon on when they had the little clear out play, Matt LaFleur said after the game, I thought Aaron Jones was still in the game.
Yep.
And that was a play for AJ Dillon, but maybe that takes the lid off of it a little bit to let them see like, hey, in these plays that are designed for the running back and you want it to be Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon can do some stuff in the passing game. And that was a big question for him coming out of Boston College. Jake Morley and I argued with Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus a bunch in the pre-draft process and the post-draft process about AJ Dillon, because I could not understand. This is before the Packers drafted him. I could not understand why they had like a UDFA grade on him. Yeah, like all of your rushing grades, he's in the 90s. Like he's historically productive. And they're like, well, he can't be a factor in the passing game. It's like every time the Packers have asked him to do something in the passing game, he's done it. And I'll leave you with this. On the play that Aaron Rodgers was tripped, AJ Dillon got open on a Texas route. He runs that little out and in route, angle route. And if Rodgers has time to throw it, it's a touchdown. And those are just things we didn't think AJ Dillon could do. The more that they're putting on his plate, I mean, you were there for training camp. He's winning. Jordan Love hit him on multiple, or in mini camps, multiple wheel routes, RB seams. That's just stuff that we didn't see at Boston College. And if he can do that, there's nothing in this offense that he can't do.
Agreed. He's already picked up pass protection. We know he's a good runner. I think the interesting thing about that too is we haven't seen it lately, but we have seen in the past with Aaron Jones that sometimes when they get him involved in the passing game, teams are starting to put more corners on him and kind of man him up in that way. I don't think they're going to do the same thing with AJ Dillon. I think if Dillon's in the game, they're going to be more linebacker, personnel, base, whatever. And I think if all of a sudden you see Dillon split out or running a Texas route, I think you're going to see linebackers covering him. And that might be something that they can actually take advantage of moving forward. That is Peter Bukowski. You can follow him on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. You can find him on The Leap. You can find him on Locked On Packers, our rival podcast. So always listen to this one first, especially on the audio and everything, but then go right over to Locked On Packers. Of course, either way, as long as you listen to both, I think we can both agree that that's probably the best way to start. Listen to all of them like 3 times. That's the best way to complete your day. Peter, thank you as always for joining me.
Thanks, Andy. Listen to Locked On Packers first.
Appreciate it, Peter. We'll do this again in a couple of weeks. Make sure to follow the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.